You are listening to the Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys podcast. Sam Loman and Mark Willard platooning in for Joe Shasky this week. Make sure you're liking, reviewing, rating, subscribing, sharing, and telling everybody about this podcast, because we are the number one source of Giants content here in the Bay Area, part of the Odyssey Sports Network here on 95.7 The Game. Now, Mark, seems like every few months we got to go through this exercise where, as I said, the Farhan wars, they're starting to rage. And it seems like just people are so quick to jump on Farhan Zaidi and just want him out. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of a broad question, but let's just kind of jump into it. Why do you think people are just so out on Farhan? I mean, before I let you answer, I just want to point out, since he got here before the 2019 season, the Giants are 352 and 301 under the stewardship of Farhan Zaidi. That's not including last night's game. That's 653 total games. From 2015 to 2018, so since the Giants last won the World Series, they went 308 and 340. That's 648 games. So 5 more games, but basically the same number of games. Giants are clearly better now than they were in the 4 years prior to Farhan's arrival. Yet you tell anybody that, on top of the fact that the farm system is better, and it just it in one ear and out the other. They just don't care. Why do you think there's so much, fan vitriol to Farhan Zaidi?
Because people don't like change. People don't like change. And this is a totally different deal. This is a totally different approach. It's a totally different style. And, the struggle to find a face of the organization is pinned on Farhan. And I would actually argue, because if you look at faces of the Giants, there was Barry Bonds, who took everybody on all kinds of individual journeys, although the team journeys fell very short. Mm-hmm. And then there was Buster Posey, if you want to add in people like Bumgarner or Lincecum. But it was really Buster Posey who took people on less of an individual journey, but the greatest team journey that we've ever known. And then you go, okay, how do you find a face? Bonds was acquired, but always felt like a favorite son.
Yes.
Buster Posey was homegrown. The idea of a face of the organization being plucked from the outside is actually pretty difficult. It can happen, but if you go around baseball and look at faces, most of them are players who are in some way kind of grown from within, or have a local attachment to a fan base. So I would argue that while Farhan has fallen short on landing the free agent that everybody's waiting for him to get, the actual culprit, the actual people to blame, if you will, that there is no face of the Giants right now, are the people who were cultivating the farm system prior to Farhan getting here, because there was nothing there. There was nothing to grow. Sure, I know that Luciano and some of these guys, but they were teenagers.
Luciano was signed in 2018, right? 2 months before Sabian and Evans were shown the door.
Right, and he was, how old was he? What was he?
16? I don't think, he couldn't even drive yet.
Right, so the fact that they have not had anyone, who right now is the leader in the clubhouse to be the homegrown face of the Giants?
It's probably Patrick Bailey right now.
Thank you.
I try to pump up Logan Webb as being that guy. It doesn't seem like it's hitting yet. But
it doesn't work as well when you're a starting pitcher. He's out there every day, and he's in a leadership position, and Patrick Bailey's the right answer, and he was one of the first draft picks that Farhan made, and a controversial one at that, because it flew in the face of Joey Bart, and he was unequivocally correct. That has already been totally proven.
I wonder how close he came to getting dealt yesterday. See, that was the one Giants name. That was the one name that popped up yesterday. I wonder how close. But
I look at it. It's changed. It's a very, very different way of going about business. It has not been successful at the highest level yet. It has totally been more successful than what was happening before he got here. And no one wants to hear that, because they are hesitant to see something that's different, especially when they're comparing it to a regime that was very, very successful. But you're right. They weren't successful for 4 to 5 years leading up to the switch.
It fell apart. Yeah, they kind of ran out of their goodwill there. And I hear you brought up a good point here at the rip. The reason a lot of fans don't like Farhan is because he's different. He is different than how Sabian used to do things. Shasky always points out that one of the first moves that Brian Sabian made was trading away Matt Williams. How that was the bold move that set the tone for Brian Sabian's tenure. That's a move you make when you have a guy like, I don't know, Barry Bonds on the roster. Like, people talk about, the greatness of Sabian. I'm not trying to diminish Sabian, but he had Barry Bonds to build around when he got here. That is like the ultimate cheat code to be able to have that. If Farhan had, say, I don't know, a Bryce Harper to build around or a Giancarlo Stanton to build around, you think things are probably a little bit different. That being said, the whole difference thing, that's kind of the point. The line I always point to that Larry Bear said after 2018 was, we want a next-gen GM. And to me, that told me that Larry was looking around the landscape of Major League Baseball, and he saw that the way that teams were constructing themselves, the way that teams were trying to win baseball games was changing. You saw back in 2017, everyone was hitting home runs. You had, random dudes that you never heard of hitting 20 home runs just by falling out of bed. But then, like in 2018, you got the Giants where Gorky Hernandez was their home run leader with 16. It just seemed like the Giants were playing baseball in rewind while the rest of Major League Baseball was moving forward.
They were.
And now I do think that the game is kind of shifting back away from that power-centric style that we saw from, kind of 2016 to 2021. But that said, Larry wanted this team to take a different direction in how it constructed its baseball teams. So, yeah, if things are different, it's because that is the point. That's not a Farhan thing. That's a what Larry wanted thing. And if the Giants do move off Farhan Zaidi, which they are not, then it's not going to be like some Dave Dombrowski type who's going to come riding in on a white horse and save the day. It's going to be another kind of Farhan type who's going to come in and just pick up doing whatever Farhan was doing right now, because that is what they wanted. I feel like another reason why fans really get kind of irritated with Farhan is they call him arrogant. They think he kind of has this kind of talk down to you nature. I'm smart, I'm better at this. I'm better at this. And you hear him a lot too. Kyle Shannon's like, watch that Buffalo Bills game. They do what they do. Or yeah. It's like, he was getting into that back and forth there. Branch the other day, it's like, you worked 4 quarterbacks today, 3 quarterbacks yesterday. It's like, okay, smartass, you know what I mean.
Right.
Like, there's that arrogance, that kind of smug factor there that I think rubs fans the wrong way. I mean, I don't know. Is that even fair? Kind of. I guess I can understand why you might not like that, but does it matter if someone's arrogant or unlikable in this situation?
Well, he's just not. And I know that fans don't get the opportunity to speak to the guy, but calling Farhan dismissive or arrogant above it is so not him. It's just not who he is. If you wanted to argue that Gabe Kapler was, I'd be much more open to hearing that. Mm-hmm. The guy who looks like he's on the catwalk when he goes out there to make a pitching change.
He's just better looking than all of us. Well, that's just the reality.
You know what I mean? Although I'm going to get a hand tattoo. We'll see if it makes me look better. If that guy makes you feel like he's talking down to you, I would be more open to it than hearing that Farhan does that, because he is just not that way. It's like I said, they have a philosophy and they stick to it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to like the philosophy, but that's the philosophy. And as you just pointed out with the numbers, it works more often than not. It works better than what was happening before. And so that's why I've always been just such a huge supporter of him. And while people will take shots at him for not making bold moves, you can point back. Part of this is also when people look back on things, you forget the bad stuff a lot more than you do the good. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's a bold move Brian Sabian and his regime made. Okay, but what about Zach Wheeler? What about Brian Reynolds?
How about the AJ Krasinski trade?
Right. What about all the bold moves where it actually blew up in your damn face?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so every regime's going to have good moves, bad moves. Farhan's moves have been way more good than they have bad. So I don't know. I reject the premise that this group does it in a we're above it way. You brought up Shanahan. What both the Giants and the 49ers do, we're going to do this in a way where we don't listen to the fans.
Yeah.
And I know that might bother people, but good God, they're right. Teams should not be listening to the fans or us.
No.
When it comes to making decisions.
our job is to talk. If our job is to make the decisions, we'd be working in the front office, which Farhan, I'll send my resume just in case.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you there. But I think maybe one other thing that maybe kind of turns fans off on Farhan in this regime is there is that obsession with data. And, I know we always kind of think that Giants fans seem to have this misconception that Farhan is sitting at a desk typing computer. What do I do? And then the computer says, you will back Jock Peterson when Marco Luciano faces a righty. No, that's not exactly what's really going on there. And conversely, Bruce Bochy, remember, he would kind of bristle at the idea that he's just out there saying, all right, good, what should we be doing today? No, he had his stat sheet as well.
He hates the perception that he just follows his gut.
One of the best stories that I like for the Giants since 2010, that game 6 against the Phillies, they game planned that entire game out ahead of time using the data they had. So that was this issue. If Sanchez falls apart, they're going to go to Affel. Then Affel's going to try and bridge them to Lincecum and Bumgarner in the later innings. And that's all done prior to the game. Bochy's not just sitting there in the dugout thinking, you know what? After Affel, I'm going to go to Bumgarner here. That's not how that works. There's far more planning here. You guys had Alex Pavlich on your show yesterday, and he did say something that kind of struck me a little bit, and that is Farhan comes from the A's and Dodgers spot of the postseason is a crapshoot. Mm-hmm. And then you build your team for regular season, whatever happens next happens. That to me is, I don't really agree with that sentiment there. I know Billy Beane famously took that stance, and of course Farhan's the Billy Beane disciple. Dodgers have that kind of the same situation where they have great regular season teams when they fall apart in October. A's, same thing. Great regular season teams fall apart in October. Farhan's cut from that same cloth, and I wonder if Giants fans maybe don't respect that style of success, because when you look at how the Giants won in 10, 12, and 14, those weren't really great regular season teams, but those teams I thought were absolutely built for October.
Well, and they were built for October because of what, in my opinion? They had definition and effectiveness out of the bullpen. Mm-hmm. It is interesting that the Dodgers use that philosophy because they have stunk in the playoffs. And maybe that's why. But I would argue it's actually much more simple than that. I've always wondered why the Dodgers don't prioritize their bullpen more. They've always got great starting pitching. They've always got an unbelievable lineup. But what wins in the postseason is a bullpen. And the Giants this year have a really good bullpen. They've got definition. You know who's coming in certain situations all the time, just like they did in 10, 12, and 14 with the Affelts and the Javi Lopez's and the Romos and the Wilsons and Casillas and all that. Mm-hmm. So they've got that again this year, which is why I'm a little bit more optimistic about the way it's going to go. It's an interesting concept, the idea that the regular season is what we plan for, and then the postseason is a crapshoot. I don't mind it as long as you're prioritizing the bullpen, because the Giants have shown they're going to be in all kinds of close games.
Yeah.
And to me, whoever's got the best bullpen is who's going to pull out the majority of those close games. Mm-hmm. Padres this year, look at their record in close games. It's terrible. Why? Because they're amazing everywhere but the bullpen. Yep. That's the key here. That's the magic elixir. That's why the Padres can't figure out our run differential is amazing, but we can't win the close games. Yeah, because you have a great lineup and you have a crappy bullpen. Giants are the other way around.
So before we get out of here, this is already going to become part of our longest. A lot of history on this podcast. It's going to be a long episode. First in-person episode, bringing you back. So much history being made on episode 69.
No one's ever called me short-winded. Sorry.
But the last thing I want to say here is I want to put on our tinfoil hat here. I have this belief that it slowly is becoming less conspiracy and more, I think, reality for me. And that is, it really feels like there is a sect of Giants fans who want to see Farhan fail just so they can say that they were right, that Farhan wasn't the guy. And I started thinking this earlier this year at the start of the baseball season. We had David Sampson on the Morning Roast. And David Sampson, whenever he comes on, he's always been a very vocal defender of what the Giants are doing. I remember one time when I got him off the phone, I asked him more questions about Farhan. He told me, Sam, there are too many smart people within the Giants front office for the Giants to struggle for a long time. Yep. And one thing he said when we had him on the show was there are a lot of fans out there that would rather be angry and right rather than happy and wrong.
Yep.
So we want to be angry. We want to say, Farhan isn't the guy. See, I told you he wasn't the guy. And it's like there's almost like this desire to see the Giants fail just so that they can say, you see, I was right not to trust this guy.
Totally.
Do you feel like that you see that too within the Giants fan base?
Absolutely. And not even just the fan base for the Giants. I see it in the whole Bay Area. I see it beyond that. That's social media. That's sports gambling. People care now more about their fantasy teams than they do their real teams because they want to be the ones in control and say, I was right. But I love that you brought this up because the Bay Area right now is literally, for me, the poster city about this. It is the poster city about this. Now, I'm a sports radio host, so I don't hate that fans are upset because fans being upset in many ways drives a lot of what we do. However, I will also clap back and say, I don't get it. I don't get it.
It just makes no.
You're on the back end of a basketball dynasty. Your football team is one of the Super Bowl favorites again and has been to the NFC title game or better 3 times in the last 4 years. And your baseball team, while you sit there and go, there are no good players, well, boy, that sounds like a compliment to the front office and the manager to me, because if there are no good players, how the hell do they have the 3rd best record in the National League? You are sitting here watching a bunch of good happen, and you're pissed.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's on you.
Yeah, no, it really
is.
On you. And I get if you want this team to fail, maybe you want them to fail because you don't think they should have moved off Sabian, Evans, and Bochy. Again, once upon a time, I would have said they were right to make that move. So there are times now where I like, you know what? When I see how the game's played today, would I've liked to maybe, I don't know, maybe they should have gotten a chance. No one was saying that back then. So you can't go back and rewrite history. But to me, I just wanting your team to fail just to feel better about yourself makes no sense to me. If you want your team to lose to get a better draft pick, yeah, that's understandable because there's something constructive there. But this whole thing of just like, I need to feel better about myself, so I hope this team fails. That really just that defies logic to me. And it's like I said, like, yes, this was I would not give Farhan a passing grade for this deadline. I would give him an F, and I do know there's the whole thing of there's no good deal to make, but and again, I'll create an unrealistic expectation for Farhan. I want to have my cake and eat it too. I wanted him to go out and find someone, but not give up anyone I care about. It's a very tough needle to thread.
Well, no one's available.
Exactly. But I look at Farhan and say, like, if there's anyone who could do it, again, this is the dude who got rid of Mark Melanson and his entire contract and got a player back in return, which still seems mind-boggling to me.
It is.
Like, that's like Bob Myers turning a pile of slop into Andre Iguodala. Like, that's how big, like, when I see that, when I see a next-gen thinking move like that, Farhan, he's creative. He's a smart guy. He can do creative deals. I wanted to see that at this deadline. And so, yeah, I'm very disappointed in Farhan, and I'm going to crush him for it because I really thought he could have done better at this deadline. We're not firing Farhan. I said this morning when I signed off on the morning roast. As Logan Roy said on Succession, the fans who want Farhan fired, I love you, but you are not serious people. Like, come on.
Correct.
The Giants have a winning record under Farhan. The farm system is really good under Farhan. I'm seeing takes on Twitter. The prospects were almost too good to trade, which is like a weird thing to say. But when you think about it, yeah, it makes sense. Matos is too good to move for a rental.
Well, they're not prospects anymore.
Those guys are too good to move for a rental.
Yeah, you can't trade your prospects because they're not prospects anymore. They're on your team.
Exactly. So
they're starting tonight, back in 7th or whatever.
If you fire Farhan, with all that being said, what you're going to get is a team that everyone you think that Farhan's ruining the Giants' reputation, but if you fire Farhan Zaidi, that's going to ruin the Giants' reputation because that's going to look like a dysfunctional team.
Oh God, it's a non-starter. So people can be mad at this. You can sound dismissive. Maybe I sound like I'm talking down to you. I don't mean that, but this is just the reality within baseball and the organization. If you're talking about firing Farhan, it's a non-starter, and you're having a conversation that nobody who actually knows what's going on is having.
Yeah, no.
And there's some sort of ism here. It's not racism. Maybe it is for a few people, but there's some sort of.
It's always a little bit of that.
There's an ism going on. I don't know if it's analyticsism. I don't know if that's what it is. You said something a second ago about the philosophies of the A's and the Dodgers. There's so many Giants fans running around with Dodger jealousy, and I wonder if y'all realize they're run the same way.
Oh yeah,
that's why he was there. That's why he came from there. The Giants are not alone. Farhan being this poster child for laptops, iPads, and spreadsheets. This is how the teams in baseball are run. This is how they're all run. And the Giants are maybe one of the teams at the forefront of that, as the Dodgers are. Oh, by the way, that's why those two names are usually right there near the top of the standings in the National League West. You know who's not doing a good job of it? The Colorado Rockies. That's a team that's like, let's save money and trade away Nolan Arenado, and then a year later give big money to Chris Bryant, who barely plays.
You talk about not seeing a vision. That's not seeing a vision.
That's how you screw up.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a regime that doesn't know what they're doing? Go there. Don't go here because you got no evidence.
Exactly. Anyway, so let's wrap that here. This has been a record-setting episode here on the Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys podcast. You know, I mean, again, Giants had a rough week, but you know what? Let's not focus on let's not elevate the negatives while diminishing the positives. Overall, I do believe that this organization is on a positive trend. They can still make the playoffs, and I do think they are very well set up to have a successful offseason. Maybe they do sign Shohei Ohtani. Maybe they don't. Personally, I don't think they will. But I do believe there are going to be other options that will be available to them. We'll see what they do. This is Sam Lubman along here with Mark Willard here on episode 69 of the Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys podcast. We'll be back next week. Shasky will be back from vacation. I'm sure he will have lots of rational takes to say about this past week. Yes. And until then, we will see you on the next one.
See ya.